Welcome back, Barbarians. We're back with another episode of the Blue Collar Barbarians podcast brought to you by the Blue Collar Barbarians Network. And we got a special guest for you, one of my best friends. I'd consider him even a brother. And we're going to talk and share his story in a way that you guys have not seen before. My man, Chris Mann, the Man Ranch now officially. Thank you for taking your time on a Sunday to join us and share some knowledge and resources with us, dude. I really appreciate you.
For sure, man. I'm glad to talk.
Yeah. Me and you have been friends for a long time, dude. So this has been a long time coming. I'm previewed to know more of your story than most people do, and we'll dive into that in a second. But I think this will be really cool. For our audience, this episode is going to dive into, especially if you're a veteran, you need to bring a notebook, sit down with a pen. We're going to dive into different programs, different things, what you should do, getting help, and then all the different resources available to you. Chris is a freaking wizard on this because he's navigated the VA like Van Wilder for so many years. So this is going to be cool. Before we get started, I'd like to say thank you to True Work. True Work is bringing this show episode to you, and they give a shit about our veterans. In fact, their founder comes from the community, so this will be a very, very cool thing to be able to tie together. I'm wearing their Whoopie vest right now and their B2 Tech flannel. This is my favorite piece, this flannel, and this Whoopie vest is awesome. So please check out True Work as they make incredible gear for the craftsmen. Chris, my man, let's dive into your background right out of the gate. Let's hit these guys with something.
So I grew up Central Washington. Not exactly the greatest student. So instantly knew I was not going to college. Joined the Marines. The day after I graduated, I was gone about 4 days later. Spent 8 years in the Marines, did a few deployments, found out I was your grandpa, all that. But yeah, once I got out, it was one of those like, okay, I need to go to school. I've got my GI Bill. Started doing that and hated school. Was just one of those like, you can't make a good student. So I started doing construction. In between, I would do like one semester at the community college, and then I would go work a 9-month project, draw some unemployment, go back to college, kind of double dip that way. I was working for the electrical union for about 4 years in between, take a job, go do a semester, come back, do a job. Maybe I'd do 2 jobs depending on how short they were. And eventually started moving up to where I was their logistics foreman. Then I went to their purchasing agent and then to running all their logistics and kind of assisting in the project management side. And once I started, I realized, okay, I'm done with my associates, but I'm getting burned out in the trades. Like we were working 610s, 710s. I didn't really have any free time. Money was great, but I was just burned out. Decided, okay, I've got my associates. Let's just finish my bachelor's. And so I went full send, full commit, in person to WSU, to Washington State University, moved over there and was like, okay, you're all in, finish your degrees. Took me about 2.5 years there, and I got 2 bachelor's degrees out of it because I was able to utilize another program. Once I was running low on my GI Bill, there's what's called the vocational rehab. So I qualified for that because of my disability rating, and was able to finish a second bachelor's degree on top. Once I'd run out of GI Bill, I had an additional 12 months of the voc rehab. Used that to finish my second degree, and and then started working for the Bureau of Reclamation about 3 years ago, and just kind of been living that, the salary, underpaid but a salary, and a lot less hours but a lot less stress.
Yeah, way less stress, I imagine.
Way less. I mean, it's like I said, the salary is much less working on the hour instead of working the trades, but my quality of life gone up, my stress level's gone down. So, and it's given me more time to kind of actually focus on the things I was dealing with for myself.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get into that. But before we get too carried away on where we're at today, let's go back up and rewind and talk about the Marine Corps there, Grandpa, as you said. For our audience, the running joke here is Chris is my senior's senior. So he's technically my granddaddy in the Marine Corps is what we call him. But it was a small world and a story I'm sure we'll tell at some point. But essentially, we met online 2017,
Yeah, 17,
16,
16. Yeah.
somewhere in there. We actually knew each other in passing somehow. It was one of those things where we met and we were like, well, when we started talking, we were like, dude, I feel like I know you from somewhere. I've seen you, and you're like, I've seen you. And we never really figured it out until we were talking about deployments or Marine Corps. I remember I posted something about the Marine Corps, and you're like, who are you with? And I said, you were like, oh, that's where I know you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Small world. But you become one of my closest friends and dearest friends over the time, more like a brother. And I want to dig into a little bit of your past here. I'm going to ask you to go deep because I know it's not easy to talk about, but it's important because I'm going to preference this a little bit for you. I just saw a post yesterday where a friend's wife, one of my Raider buddies, his wife just posted a picture saying that one of her friends lost her battle with her demons yesterday. She said she's heartbroken. 2 days ago, she just was talking to this person. I just read this post and it really spoke to me. It kind of just another slap in the forehead, right? And she said that her friend lost her battles with her demons yesterday. And for our audience, that means that she committed suicide, which was really unfortunate. It's interesting to me because me and you come from a time like war was different. Like war was not on social media. It was whatever you saw on Fox or ABC or NBC, and that was it, right? Let's dive into what that was like for us. Let's dive into your first deployment if you can. You were in the Marine Corps when? Let's start with that.
Yeah, so I was in from 2003 to 2010. Caught my first deployment the end of 2003, early 2000, and then did a deployment 2004, 2000, and then 2007, 8, and 8 and 10. So I pretty much stayed my whole damn near first enlistment plus my re-enlistment deployed. I had to. I couldn't. I would get in trouble. I know me, and it's that idle hands. If I'm not doing something, I'm gonna find something to do. Especially in my younger days, where I was much more outgoing and pretty much spontaneous. If I was back in garrison, I was partying. I was chasing women. It was every young Marine's whole entire personality. But yeah, so even when the unit, I kind of jumped around. Like I would hear, hey, this unit's deploying. They're looking to reinforce. Send me. I'm in. So I did 2 deployments with 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines. That's who I was actually stationed with in Hawaii. And then came back, did a pump with 2-4. And then as soon as we got back, I heard, 3-4s reinforcing from a truck platoon. I'm in. And that was where I met all my boots who were your seniors come another year later or so. So it was just kind of, I had to stay busy. It was definitely, it's very different because, one deployment we had an embedded guy from a media outlet, but even that, it was like, what was seen was not always seen. And it was, the way people got in trouble was because their cameras would get lost or they would upload them online, and it was just, there wasn't
a huge no.
Yeah. It was to the point to where if you were in any sort of leadership, you had to be checking, delete it. I don't care. Delete it. Don't record this. Nothing, there's certain things that just don't need to be shared online. And that's every aspect of life.
Yeah.
There's certain things you show with your buddies. There's certain things you don't post online. And that's, and so that was an early lesson on with that. And you see it. Most of the smears from Iraq and Afghanistan early 2000s are from stuff that was leaked. Stuff that shouldn't have been taken out. The scout snipers, urinating on bodies. Yes, they're
Yeah,
dead.
and
Yes, the people are dead, but not a good optic.
right, but let's be real that little snippets that people see is missing a ton of context prior to. What you
Absolutely.
don't realize is that sniper killed 14 Americans or
Yeah.
something before he was found, or was the most wanted sniper in that region at the time and was responsible for over 40 deaths. Or,
Right. No,
I mean, like
absolutely.
there's a ton of missing context. But let's dive into that. What did you do starting out in the Marine Corps? Like, let talk people through this, because a lot of people, they know you as this big satire. They know you're a veteran, and they know that you do a lot of vet hunts and you donate your time, and we'll get into that later. And you do a lot for the veteran community, which I greatly respect about you. It's one of my favorite things. Like, as far as like people I know, and I'm like, man, that guy makes me proud. What you do to give back, you cover that. But I want to talk about you, and I know this is hard for you. I know this is hard, but let's talk about what you did. Like, and then let's go through deployment 1 through 3.
Deployment 1, super boot. Did pretty much everything. Just what I was told. We were doing patrols.
As what? What were you?
The infantry. So I was with 1st
Yes.
Battalion, 3rd Marines, patrolling in Iraq, just door to door stuff for the initials, and it was just kind of, it was honestly, God, like, yes, that was probably the most chaotic deployment, but that was probably the easiest because you have no responsibilities. You just do what you're told. It's the easiest thing, you know. It's next deployment was Afghanistan, where we were semi-mobile. We had unarmored
Time frame.
05.
Okay.
So 2005, northern Afghanistan, based out of Jalalabad, and then we had most of the northern region. I think it's
And what a lot of people don't realize is we weren't in Afghanistan yet at that point.
Well, it was like
more
we were semi new to starting to rip over. There'd been a few battalions that had done a 7-month there, and we ripped out our sister battalion 2-3, and then we were we were there for the 7-month doing operations, and ended up getting relieved. That was when they kind of started. They're like, okay, Marine Corps, we're pulling you back out. They brought in the Army to then Afghanistan.
Yeah.
But so that one we were mostly mobile, but non-armored Humvees. So still had the high backs. Instead of the tarp, we just had sheet metal on the sides, soft doors, no Blue Force trackers, anything like that. Like, it was, I think there was called the Warlock back then, and it was supposed to stop an IED blast, but they don't work very well.
Yeah, and now, was there IEDs going on in Afghanistan in 04, 05?
Yeah, mostly they were anti-tank mines and stuff. They weren't.
Okay.
They weren't the intricate technology that you saw into the 07, 08, 09, where they were really wiring stuff up. It was kind of modified, makeshift, but it was mostly to cause pinch points, because we were, in Afghanistan, you've got these high mountains, and they're not going to give that country up, and no conquering force is going to take that country. Those are experts of war, and they know their mountains better than you will ever know their mountains. And so a lot of it was, most of our major engagements were disable a front vehicle, boom, now we're in a pinch point because we're in this valley, and there was just no good way to fight when you're fighting dual uphills with trash equipment. So that was second deployment. Yeah. Got back. Third deployment was very low key. It was we were at Haditha Dam, and
in Iraq for
in Iraq. Yeah, this was then over to Iraq. Haditha Dam, not much, kind of slow, a lot of patrols. Fourth deployment, south side, which was with 3-4, your battalion, helped run the truck platoon down in Hit. They split the battalions to 2 AOs, so I took me and the 3-4 guys and a couple of heavy equipment operators, ran the southern AO, and every now and again we would go back up, and it was funny because the northern AO was based at Haditha Dam, so it was like, make the 4-hour drive, go see guys that I was actually stationed with that had also jumped over to attach. So, but even that one was very, very low key. A few minor skirmishes, a lot of stuff that the hits were IEDs or a sniper pop shot. during,
Yeah.
a platoon would be out doing security for a public affairs event, a medical out there doing public stuff, sniper would pop off. And so we'd run reinforcement and QRF for that, but pretty slow deployment about '08, and that was when they were kind of starting to demill and demob some of these outlying cops. So it was kind of just a weird It was a good wrap up. It was still got a tax-free reenlistment bonus, so I can't really complain too much.
So let's get into it. So when you're, a lot of deployment stuff is not what people think. It's not you're fighting every day, all day, although there is deployments like that, like with our guest, Will Rollins, that we talked about his Silver Star thing, where anytime he went out, they could pick a fight in Afghanistan in '08. And his shortest firefight, which is crazy to me, his shortest firefight in '08 was 4 hours. Shortest, which is insane, right? And that's
that was that Sengan Valley Gun Club years. I've got a very dear friend that I believe got a bronze or a Silver Star from there as well. And I mean, we've kind of talked about that. It was like Sengan Valley. That was a different monster completely.
Yeah. So I spent all my time in Afghanistan officially, and that in that area, that region, that southern region, and we came in to relieve those guys after it was brutal. I mean, just brutal. But they were like the first ones in where the Taliban realized they were going to fight the Marine Corps, so they would actually fight to figure out what we would do. And then the Taliban learned from was 2-7. They learned what air support looks like and what that can do. From those boys it was a different time. Yeah, it was a different time. They battled. Yes, they battled. They were brilliant. Will, my buddy, he'd have been in Iraq, kicked indoors like you, similar time frame actually at '04. And so he said, I thought I was combat hardened then. Right. I'm the sergeant of Marines in the infantry, and I've already been to combat. And he said then that deployment in Afghanistan was just a different monster. Holy shit, battle. And so. But we're not talking about Will, we're talking about you. And the reason I wanted to highlight that, and this is strictly for the audience, is you need to understand that you guys get to see a lot of this on social media nowadays. So you're kind of desensitized to what this was. But for us, when we were 19 years old, 20 years old even, we were in a video game at times. And it was what you saw on the news, and it was either go serve your country or shut the fuck up and don't. That was the temperature at the time. You can sit on the couch and arm chart, woo, 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 this is what we think is going on, and this is because that's what the NBC shows, or this or that, or you could join, and without a doubt at the time, you're going to deploy. If you join the military in a certain time frame, you can pretty much a 95 guarantee that you're going to spend time overseas at least one time in your enlistment. It was almost 100% guarantee. At least when I joined, I knew for sure, I'm going to fight. Without a doubt, I'm going to war. And so I want to back up because it was fresh on your mind when you went in. You're a couple years past 9/11. The initial push, kick, whatever invasion has already happened, but we're in the fight, right? So what was your first deployment like in the sense of that? I know you went through some pretty tragic experiences. Can you share that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first deployment was Fallujah, and so that was...
And what years? Tell our guys, so they need to know.
2000.
Okay, which was...
IF2, I believe, is 2.1. I'm not sure what the... It was the invasion. It was the push for Fallujah. It was
the battle where they dropped flyers and warned the enemy that we are coming.
We gave them, I think it was 14 days. Get out. If you're there, you are a combatant. And I think the easiest way for anybody to kind of relate to what it might be would be, I mean, I guess, I don't know, the show's kind of crazy, but Generation Kill did a pretty good job of documenting what those first couple years looked like. Yeah, there was a lot of time where you weren't, you were doing humanitarian aid, you were directing traffic, you were getting people away, but then it was still clearing houses, making sure that there is no one in the vicinity of where you're at. And this was multiple units, battalions, branches. I mean, there was Army units coming from the north, Marines over by the warehouse district, Army Special Forces running around like spooks throughout everywhere. It was a multifaceted, I don't want to say an invasion, but it was an aggressive push for that city. And it was bloody. And it was the Wild West. It's kind of the only way you can really, I don't tend to talk about a lot of things, but that one's, I can talk about things, but it's one of those, like, it's hard to explain to someone that was never even around it, or to really explain how intricate Fallujah was.
Did your friends die?
Yeah. I mean, I lost guys in it. Every deployment except my fourth, we lost some, at least, minimum one. I think Fallujah we lost 16. Second deployment was the hardest one. That was where a very dear friend of mine, kind of a guy that took me under my wing when I was new to the unit, was killed by an IED blast. So it's, there's loss in every,
Yeah. And then were you there for that when that happened that day?
That one I was there. I was 3 trucks back.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine that to this day is tough.
That would be, if there's things like that, I will never go into detail. I mean, I've spoken with therapists about it, and they're like, don't say never. I'm like, no, I promise you, I will never talk about the details of that day. No. There's like, when you tell people, think about the worst day you've ever had in your life. It doesn't take me but 1 second to think about that one day.
I'm sorry that you lost your friend. There's a lot of good men that died over there. Over that 20 years, to see it all pissed away too is just disappointing.
It's not great.
It's disappointing.
It is. But again, like I said, and it took me years to kind of think about that, like really critically think about Afghanistan. You're never going to take Afghanistan.
Never.
No one's been able to do it in history. No one. And yes, botched pullout. Necessary pullout. Yes, we need to do a bunch of, because there's no point in burning that money. We're never going to take Afghanistan.
Yeah, we shouldn't have left all our assets.
No,
and people,
like I said, botched pullout. Yeah, botched. It's the only.
That was an uphill battle from the beginning that we weren't going to win. But
correct. That was, and I understand. Yes, that's where we should have been the whole time. That should have had all of our attention, not split with Iraq and Afghanistan. But I'm not paid enough money to think about those problems.
No, you're not. So what I want to talk about here is like the fact that you spent time doing the knuckle dragging work. You're kicking doors, you're leading Marines, you've done a little bit of everything, gotten into firefights, experienced deep and personal loss, seen trauma firsthand. For our audience, when he says Fallujah was bloody, I mean, Fallujah was bloody. You're talking just blood running down the streets kind of thing. Dead people around corners, piled up and built. I mean, it was bad. It was a battle, a necessary battle. You guys killed a lot of bad guys in that push when you took that town. But it was still bloody, and that's a lot for a 20, 25-year-old even kid.
I was 18.
Yeah, no, sure. But I'm saying that's a lot for even a 20 or 25-year-old kid. Like, it's a lot to take in. And then you look at the amount of those people that are today on the outside and struggling because of a life 20 years ago, and it's rough. And we're going to get into that a little bit here further. But so you made it through loss. You spent 3 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan, right? So you spent plenty of time in the sandbox. At one point when you re-enlisted, you got out of the infantry and went into logistics, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that like?
Different. There's not a lot of job opportunities, outside the military. Like, yes, you will learn things in the military in most jobs, but a lot of them don't transfer over. Now, as far as the logistics side goes, that's a broad canvas of what you can do just with that little bit of experience. It helps with, I mean, when you think about anything logistics, FedEx is logistics. So as far as like setting yourself up for a move, I knew I wasn't going to do 20 years in the military. I knew that. I didn't have it in me. I knew I was going to do 8. 8 made it so I could never get recalled. That was my magic number. I might have done 12 had I pinned on, if I'd have pinned staff, or, if I had done things different, if, I hadn't gotten in a little bit of trouble, maybe I
Yeah.
would have. But my ultimate plan was 8 and out, still young enough to do life. And so what can I do to better when I get out? Learn something. And so the logistics side, you learn dealing with people, shipments, trackings, item, there was an open window of what I could do after the military with any sort of logistics experience. And it's kind of funny that I don't use any of it now.
You don't.
I
But
do
I'm glad
a
that,
little, but not a lot.
yeah, still necessary that you had it though.
Yeah, yeah, and it gave me the chance. I had lat moved, and that was when the 3-4 deployment came up. They were like, "Hey, look, we're sending guys. Do you want to go again?" I was like, "Yeah, why not?" I was with the 12th Marines Artillery Battery at the time, just
Yeah.
in their S4, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm in. Let's go. Why not?"
Yeah. No, for sure. It's after 8 long years, ups and downs, deployments, the bullshit of the military, which people that weren't in won't necessarily understand, but there's a lot of bullshit that comes with being a service member of any branch, but especially in the Marine Corps. You get out, you go back to college, or you start college in between working your way to the project management side of the blue collar world, and you just have to try to figure out how to fit. What was it like trying to come back to society?
Coming back when I got home, it was kind of lonely. I guess
Yeah.
that's like the word that kind of steps out, because yeah, I had a couple of guys that I had joined with, that they were back by then and they were in town, but it was kind of, you know you have your group of friends that you grew up with, and then you remove yourself for 8 years. They kept going on with their lives, so now they're married, they have kids. Now you come back, and it's just kind of, you can't relate, and they can't relate, and you try to find, get in where you fit in, kind of thing. And so, but I just kind of, I found myself drinking a lot. Part of that was drowning out, not addressing the issues that I had internally, mentally, spiritually, like emotionally. And alcohol is the easiest thing. You can always go down to the American Legion. There's always somebody there drinking. Go
Yeah.
down, and that became a lot of my life, was working, or especially when I was in school, it was awful, because I wouldn't. Oh, I don't have class till noon. Let's go drinking tonight. Every night
Yeah.
was just drinking, partying, carrying on, but never working on myself. And so, yeah, it just, getting home was different. They don't do a good job when you transition out of the military. Kind of, well, maybe they're doing a better job now, but they definitely don't kind of prepare you or warn you, or, hey, it's going to be a little different. Here's some resources that are available to you when you get home. When I went out, when I was transitioning out of the military, it was 4 days. Here's how to write a resume. Here's how to apply for jobs. Here's the DAV rep. Let's get you signed up for your disability rating or compensation. Get you into the VA's system. And good luck. There you go. They don't tell you about all these amazing, not only just nonprofits that are out there to help you and be a resource to you, but even internal to the VA, if you don't feel like going to a VA hospital, there are veteran centers that are funded by the VA, but they don't answer to the VA. They're there to be a total community resource, and they are all over the country. And it took me a lot of years to figure that out.
Right. And so when you transitioned, I imagine your transition was similar to mine, where you wake up one day and it's not the Marine Corps you miss, it's the chaos, it's the camaraderie, it's the, your gang, your brotherhood. Like, you're rowdy every day, all day. That's the people we were with. They were just hitters. You go and you get it. Even the air quote shitbag Marines, right? Like, they were still hitters. You party all night, rally, and then go, still drunk, run a PFT like all the time, or hungover, run 7 miles, getting smoked, like just getting ready, or go spend 3 days in the field running shit over with 7 tons, like in between runs, and pouring Crown into your Coke, and like just rowdy crew. And then you get out and all of a sudden, lonely is an incredible way to put it. I never thought about it like that. Yeah, you're lonely because nobody makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Just the guys you were with get you. All your old friends, or all the people that knew you from high school, maybe even old girlfriends, they don't know you now. They don't know what you've been through. You don't even know you anymore, right? Like, you're trying to figure you out, and you're realizing really quickly that the world that you stepped away from is not the world that you're coming back to. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the way I look at it is like, here's your life. It pauses, and you went this way while everybody else moved forward. So you come back and you're like, oh, so you got to catch up with where they're at. You got to figure out what kind of changes they've made. You kind of, I always say the Marine Corps kind of emotionally stunts you.
Yeah.
Like, you come back and because you have this way of life where it's, yeah, you got the boys, you're rowdy, you're partying, you're not thinking about moving forward emotionally, making growth in your life. You're thinking about the next paycheck. What are we doing the next weekend, next deployment, next training op, party with the boys. Everybody else has moved on with their life and moved forward in their lives. And so, yeah, you got to play catch up. And if you're not achieving that, it can get pretty, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it can get very disheartening when you're like, man, I'm behind on everything.
Everything.
Socially, emotionally, financially, usually. You don't have, if you get out after 8, that's 8 years of you not having a pension. I know guys that they're getting close to retirement now. They're eligible to retire. And it's like, man, like, I'm nowhere near that.
It's weird to see, like, boots or guys that are a year ahead of me or around my time frame pinning on master sergeant and first sergeant and
retiring.
Yeah, like they're E8s and at the end of it now. And I remember when they pinned on corporal. Like, it's just insane to see boots pinning on gunny and even make the jump into the officer ranks. I know a couple of those guys that are now like first lieutenants and stuff like that, but they made it all the way up to gunny before they even jumped. Incredible for them, by the way. Incredible that they've done that, and more power to them. And I'm glad that the military worked out and the Marine Corps worked out for them and treated them well for all these years. I miss it some days still. But what I really want to do, Chris, is, so we kind of qualified you here. We've told people, like, yeah, you've seen some shit, you lost some friends, and I really want to get to know a different side of you, and I want to give these guys resources. So we got a lot of veteran friends that were the too hard to, and we know plenty of them, too hard to get a VA rating because I'm fine, I didn't lose shit, blah, 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 blah. Like, other people lost more, which is respectable. But we know plenty of people along those lines. And then we also know a lot of people that, because the VA at the time that we're talking about getting out, the 2011, 2012 timeframe, it was such a time suck and shit show and so slow that a lot of these guys want nothing to do with it. They want to be off the grid. They don't want nothing. But what they're not realizing is they're missing a ton of resources to help. So I'd like to do is dive into some of the resources available. Now, you mentioned a couple, like using your post 9/11 and Voc Rehab. Can you briefly, let's start there and work our way kind of through this. Let's talk about using your 9/11 and then how you can supplement Voc Rehab or whatnot if you have a disability rate. Let's kind of briefly get into 9/11 and Voc Rehab first, then we'll dive a
Okay, so yeah, so not, the post 9/11 GI Bill, every service member is qualified for it. As long as I think you have to have served 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, Post 9/11 pays for your college for 36 college months, not 36 calendar months, college months. So if you do 2.5 months in a semester, you only lose 2.5 months of that. So you can actually stretch it out to about four. It's good for a bachelor's degree. You will get a BAH housing stipend for while you're in school. In person, you get a full
If you're
draw,
full time.
full time, full draw, and it cuts down all the way to halftime. And there is that check. Online, there's full time online gets, I think, a 3/4. So it's less because they're assuming you're probably working and doing college at home on your own time. So in person, you get BAH. You can also qualify for financial aid through the Pell Grants and stuff like that that are, oh, sorry, excuse me. They're you don't have to pay them back. They're not student loans. They're grants given to students. And I tell every vet when I was in college, I was like, you need to apply for this. Like it's there to help. It's there to ease a little bit of a buffer because maybe you're not working while you're in college and you're just living off of a disability rating, GI Bill, and that's it. I mean, that can get real lean when you are a grown human and you have to pay for your apartment and
Yeah.
everything else, that college normally has to pay for. So the Pell Grants, the financial aid, they're great avenues for that. And then the Voc Rehab is another program. I believe you have to have a 30% VA combat service rating. It might just be service connection, but it offers up to 12 months either on top of your GI Bill or if you're completely, like if you are in a trade and, hey, I want to go to this year-long school. Voc
Yeah.
Rehab can pay for 12 months of that school, and you will get a $500 or $1,000 a month stipend for housing, books, everything like that.
But
Now,
Voc Rehab also provides something, correct?
as far
Don't you
as
get to make a list of things that you would need for, say, said
yes. So, like,
career?
yeah, they'll say, okay, what do you need for this program? So, hey, I don't have a laptop, or hey, my laptop is not going to keep up with this course load. It's old, it's bogged down. They will provide you with a printer, a laptop, what you need to be successful. And then at the end of your Voc Rehab term or the class, they'll help you get ready to do your resumes. They'll help you with job sourcing. They'll link you up with recruiters in that field to make it to where you are moving forward and getting hired. They also, if you have any GI Bill left. So when I transferred over to vocational rehab, I had about 9 months on my GI Bill left, but I knew I wasn't going to have. I was either going to have to take more student loans or figure out or just not finish that second degree. And I got in, and they said no. We will engulf the rest of your GI Bill and give you an additional 12 months. And since you have GI Bill, instead of your $1,000 a month stipend, we're going to give you your BAH for the entirety, plus 3 months after you graduate, so you can job hunt and not be stressed. So after I graduated, I continued to get BAH for 3 months while I was job searching. I got lucky and I was hired here at the Bureau 3 weeks after I graduated, but it still was a great buffer where I had 3 months of BAH coming in to help pay for my transition, my move over, finding an apartment, everything. So it's a great resource that not a lot of people know about when it comes to the
Yeah.
education side of the house.
And so, how do you do that? So, let's use me for example. I just looked on my service record yesterday. A couple days ago now, excuse me. And I was, because you'd asked me this, and I wanted to do this on this show to kind of walk people through. So, I have 17 available months left of GI Bill
Mhm.
post 9/11.
Yeah.
So,
So
how
what
would I take that into Voc Rehab?
So what you would do is on va.gov, you would go through and there's when you're looking at education benefits, and then there's going to be a drop down that'll say Voc Rehab. It'll drop down, it'll say apply for Voc Rehab. And you will click, it'll ask you a few questions, and it'll send it off to a vocational rehab counselor. They will certify, yes, this person meets all the curriculums for receiving Voc Rehab benefits. then they will contact you. You'll go in, you'll meet with a voc rehab counselor, and he'll say, okay, he or she'll say, what is your plan? What are you wanting to do? What program? And then you say, okay, here's the program, and you make a roadmap with them. This is why I'm wanting to use this program. Here's the end goal. They're gonna be your counselor. You're gonna report to them every month, certifying, yes, I'm still keeping up and everything. But they will take care of all the paperwork of engulfing your GI Bill. They'll send you a statement. Here's the total amount of benefits once we have engulfed your GI Bill. And so then you don't deal with school counselors as much as your voc rehab counselor. And sometimes mine was 40 miles away, down in a different town. So during college, once a quarter, he would either come up to the university because he had 15 or 20 of us that were all in voc rehab, or we would individually go down to him, depending on, he was an older guy in a wheelchair, so he wasn't always super mobile. So, but he was there. He would certify every month. Yep, I'm in school. I'm in classes. I'm attending. I'm passing. That's the bigger. I'm passing my classes, and he would just certify, and boom, tuition would be paid. So he was now the one writing the check, pretty much, on the voc rehab side. He would also, the other benefit that a lot of people don't know about with voc rehab is, while you are on the vocational rehab, you have dental insurance. And he would always mention, hey, are you having tooth issues? You having this? Hey, you need to get in for a cleaning even. And so a lot of guys I knew that, they'd have would need a root canal. I tell them, hey man, just transfer over to voc rehab. Then at least go get taken care of that way. It's not necessarily gaming the system, but it's using a resource available for you for what it's supposed to be.
For sure. And so another thing I want to talk about with the voc rehab thing is these counselors, don't they? So a lot of people don't get that the voc rehab, what I was trying to go with this is that, talk us through that. You meet with the counselor initially, and I'll use myself as a reference here. I've been doing construction for 10 years, right? And a lot of guys that use voc rehab, this is a similar thing. They've been doing something for a while, but it's just not the career, there's no satisfaction in life, right? And so with voc rehab, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the program where the counselor actually can help you figure out what you're into or different career options. Is that correct?
Yeah, when you sit down with them, you're gonna make a roadmap. They're gonna talk about, okay, what are some trades, or not even trades, what are some careers that you are interested in? And they want realisticness. The idea of the vocational rehab is job training.
Yes.
It might be, hey, I've been a pipe fitter for 10 years, but I want to get into HVAC. And then they're going to go, okay, well, actually, there's a great HVAC training center where you can go full time, and they'll foster that. And then they're going to help you find jobs after you graduate your training. So you don't have to use it for a year. It could be, hey, I need it for 6 months. I want to finish this training school. I want to get this certificate. This will make me more desirable to be hired for X. And so they're going to work a roadmap with you, and they're going to hold you to that roadmap. And it can be modified, because you could find out, 3 months into it, you're like, I'm not really into it. This is maybe let's go back to the drawing board. Obviously there has to be pursuing getting back into the workforce. That's what voc rehab is for, is to help you get into the workforce and be successful. So it's not just there to be drawn on and
right. But with that, you could, this includes an array of things, right? I know people have used voc rehab, say, for culinary school. Go and learn how to cook, pursue a passion and take it to the next level. Guys that have used it to go to dive school.
Yep.
For underwater welding and things like that. This is where they really get into trying to find something for you, correct?
Yeah.
Trying to help you find you.
Find something that you're going to enjoy doing as a career. It's going to, it's going to be a nice buffer to make it to where you're not stressing going to this school, because, hey, I can't afford to stop my 9 to 5 job and do night school here. I can't do it. Well, boom. Now we're gonna make it to where it's paid for. That underwater dive academy, it's paid for. We're going to give you a little bit of a stipend to help with, materials, books, everything, housing. You're not working during that time. Your job is to be a student in that avenue that you are pursuing. Your job is to focus 100% on that.
Can you collect unemployment while you're on voc rehab?
So it is a bit of a gray area. Technically, no. You're not supposed to, because under the unemployment rules, you're supposed to be actively job searching. Now, I will say this for certain guys who are in unions, there is a little loophole where if you are on the books, available to take call-outs and not denying call-outs, like say you sign a book in a region that has no work. You're on the books as a dues-paying union member, you can draw unemployment. Yeah. Now, while you're waiting for a call, you could be doing this voc rehab. There's gray areas, but for the most part, no. You're supposed to be, because you're not, according to the rules of unemployment, you're not job seeking right now.
Yeah.
So you do not qualify, and if you're caught, you will have to pay the benefits back. But like I said, there's the union loophole, yes. Because what you're doing.
So let's give somebody an example of this, because so I'm a union guy, right? Like I run Crane for the union. So essentially, what Chris is saying is you can't just be on unemployment and get voc rehab, because you have to be available to work. Now, you're in the winter season and there's not another tower crane for 6 months, and you decide in that time you would like to go to school, but you're still going to keep yourself available to work if the union said calls you. So while it's, say, a slow time of the year, rather than sit on your hands and collect unemployment doing nothing, waiting and praying and fingers crossed I get a job, you decide to make yourself more dynamic. So you get on voc rehab and you attack a new certification or a new class. And if the union calls, then you work it out with, say, your teacher to do that or whatnot. But you're still technically, say the union doesn't call, you're still waiting for work. That would be the gray area there for our folks to understand what he's saying. Now, he's not giving you legal advice here saying you cheat the system. That's not what we're doing. We're just letting you know that there is options, there's loopholes, there is holes in everything, right? And so that being said, you should always pursue, in my opinion, undeniable stacks of evidence. And in this case, more certifications, more, I don't like to say degrees because I'm a blue collar guy. I think you go and you gain a skill.
There's the PMCs, the project manager certs.
Yes.
These are certs that you can take to almost any private sector or federal. All our project managers on the federal side, in order to be a GS-12, you got to have the project manager certs. There's certain classes that you pay for out of your own pocket for these certs too. So these are something that voc rehab, GI Bill, they can cover those.
Yes.
Guys during their apprentice, if you're doing your apprenticeship, you have to go to school for 1 or 2 weeks every year. You can use your GI Bill to pay for that and compensate you for your time. You get 2 weeks of BAH, and they'll figure that out. But apprenticeships are covered under GI Bills and voc rehabs.
Yeah, that's incredible. So out of the two, you'd say voc rehab, if you qualify, is the better option?
I would say using both together is the best option. Now, obviously, I understand a lot of, traditional college might not be for everyone.
Yeah.
But the GI Bill can also be used in trade schools. You can use it for flight school. I believe you used it for part of flight school. There's a wide range of what you can do with GI Bill, and voc rehab can be just a second. Say you're running short, or I went and I pursued this degree and I really hated it. I'm going to go a different route. Well, or even a certificate. I was in this apprenticeship for 3 years and it turns out I hate it. So I'm going to move over to this apprenticeship and give this a try. that's where, doubling up on the voc rehab and using it as a buffer on the back end can be, it's not double dipping because they engulf what you have left, and now it's just voc rehab. If you look at my GI Bill stat, it's 0, 0, 0, 0. I have not a day left of GI Bill because I pulled it over to my voc rehab. But once you're done with your voc rehab program, you're done. So if I decide, well, shoot, I actually hate this, I want to go back. Well, now I'm kind of, you're taking a gamble to finish your goal for the long run. You're using all of the benefits for their added 12 months.
Sure. And then we'll move on from this to some more resources here in a second. But I just want to clarify. So when you're in voc rehab, though, say you got a year in and you realize, like, I don't like, maybe aviation's not for me. Like flying helicopters or airplanes, I didn't enjoy that as much as I thought I would all of a sudden, or as much as I hope. So can you and how do you explore new options? Is that an option?
Yes. So the first thing is communication with your counselor. Your voc rehab counselor is your ultimate resource for that. And, and that was the thing with me is I was just going to do my major and do a second major. Yeah, I was doing law, and there was still the option where I could do. They would have covered me. There's extensions, so like the guys that are using their GI Bill and voc rehab to do medical school, they can actually give you. You could stay in voc rehab for all of medical school if they have to approve it. If you're showing, hey, here's the situation. Med school is going to be 6 years. I have 4 years of GI Bill. Will voc rehab cover me this other 2? Yes, they will. As long as you're showing your roadmap is here and X is my final destination. I say 12 months because that's but there are extensions. I actually used voc rehab for 14 months because I was 2 months. I was like, hey, I need one more semester. Give me this semester so I can finish 2 full bachelor's degrees instead of just a double major. And, I sold it as here's why I need these, because my ultimate goal was I was going to go to a law enforcement federal agency. I was looking at the Secret Service, the FBI, or the CIA when I was in that last 7 months of college, when I was job searching. So I needed a bachelor's in criminal justice and a bachelor's in psychology. I said, that'll make me more desirable than just a guy with 1 degree. I said 2 is always better than 1. These are 2 that can be used in those agencies, and they were on board with it. And and then I realized that the getting a school seat to FLETC takes a lot longer than the 6 months that I gave it. I needed to start a year. And so when I heard about my job that I actually still have, they hit me up and said, hey, we can hire you in 20 days. And I said, you know what? I needed stability. And he said, give me a year. You get your foot in the door with the federal agency. It'll actually even make you easier to transfer over to a different agency if that's what you want to do. And so that was ultimately my plan was, okay, I just bought myself a year. I will have my foot in the door with the federal agency. Now let's start applying at the FBI, Secret Service. And then I just kind of started to enjoy the job I'm doing and deleted all my applications for the federal agencies that are more law enforcement related. And I'm gonna ride it out here. And I've found some place that I'm using the logistics that I thought I was never going to use, but not in a shipping necessarily, but as far as like an inventory tracking stuff, there's usage. And then with the criminal justice and the psychology degrees, yeah, they're not at the forefront, but they're still something can't be taken away from me if I ever do decide to leave here.
Sure. So you got your post 9/11, which essentially anybody that's served more than 2 years and got an honorable discharge is eligible for. They can actually do it while they're in the service. You can start to use it if you want, double up on it, start knocking down degrees. I know a Savage named Jen, my buddy Josh's wife. I think she's got her master degrees now already through, and why she's in the Air Force, active duty, and a mom, just a straight barbarian herself. But for those that are out, use your GI Bill. You have it. You warranted it. Like, use it. Even if it's, you can, I know, like, I was able to use it to help get my crane certifications, right? So that used a small portion. Actually, I think it only took 2 months of my GI Bill away for that, or a month even. It wasn't much. So, and then I still have like 17 months left. And then there's Voc Rehab, which allows you, it will provide you with the things you need. Say you want to get into social media management or photography or cinematography. Like you literally get to say, hey, I have an Apple MacBook, but it's 3 years old and outdated. It doesn't process good enough. It's small. It's this. I need, and they give you, I think it's 5 items like wish list, and you can shop and you give them comparables, and then essentially they will purchase you your brand new Sony A7R4, your MacBook, your mouse and keypad, your boots that you need for that, and backpack, like whatever that main item is that you need for it to make that happen, they provide, as well as take care of all the paperwork, get you into the school, absorb whatever VA you have left to make, or your GI Bill left to make it to where you can functionally go and transition into this program with a counselor, working through something into a career that you're going to feel some sort of satiation in the sense of purpose, or that you're going to get, it's going to give you a second breath almost at a career, like no matter where you're at, as long as you're eligible, correct?
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, it's a case by case with each counselor. I mean, they may say, okay, hey, look, a Sony A7 is a lot and a MacBook Pro is a lot. I was like, pick one. We'll take care of one. They're not unlimited amounts of money per se. But
Sure.
What people don't realize is you're signing a contract with Voc Rehab that if you don't fulfill the contract is you will graduate this program and you will find gainful employment. If you don't, they have the ability to take all the money back because they're putting it forward to you and you've agreed to this. So if you 3 months after, when you're supposed to be job searching and they're helping you find jobs, if you're like, to hell with it, I'm not going to meet with the final requirements that you've agreed to, they can go, okay, well, we gave you this, and this amount. We want it back. And it will either be garnished from your wages, garnished from your disability. I mean, they're going to get their money back it's there to be a resource, but it's not there to be taken advantage of.
Sure.
Oh, hey, let me sign up for this. I want a couple of, a new laptop, or I want a new camera. And then,
yes,
and that's where they will work with you, but you have to do your job and your diligence to show them, here's the map, here's the route. Do you agree? Is this obtainable? And if the counselor doesn't sign off on it, they won't sign off on it, kind of thing. They'll say, no, sorry, that's not a program that we can get behind. We've noticed it with a lot of the art institutes that were not necessarily state funded or publicly funded. They were private art institutes, and then all of a sudden they closed down. Well, now you've completely lost all the months that they paid on your GI Bill or Voc Rehab, and you have nothing to show for it. So they're a little lenient or a little leery with getting in with art institutes and stuff like that, unless they're time tested, accredited, transferable. That's the big, So I mean, you need to do your due diligence to find the program that isn't brand new. They're not going to get behind a brand new. Oh, this brand new program at the Seattle Art Institute is social media management. They're going to go, okay, well, is there other like programs at other universities around? Maybe one that's not going to fail, and if it does fail, are we going to be able to get our investment back, so to speak? So you'll work with the counselor, and they'll work with you, but the goal is, here's X, this is what I want to be, here's where I want to end up. Can we make it happen? And they're going to work with you on every step of the way.
Yeah, and so like essentially what Chris is saying, guys, is like when you go to do Voc Rehab, especially, you need to treat it like you need to be ready to. I'm going to actually follow through with my word. I'm going to give this a go. And the more open you are with your counselor, and the more you communicate and you strengthen that line of communication between you two, the more that they can enable you to help you succeed. So like, let's use me for a working example. If I was to decide like currently how I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with myself, right? Like outside of just run cranes, I want to move into this. They're going to ask me, well, what are you into? And I'm going to be able to tell them, well, I just spent a decade in construction and but I'm struggling now. And I'm going to be real with my counselor because I want them to understand where I'm at. I'm not going to hold shit back. I'm going to tell I am struggling. I don't feel a purpose. I don't get anything from this anymore. I'm barely getting by for my family. Whatever your current situation, you just give them that information and then say, listen, the whole reason I've stuck it out this 10 years is because, one, I'm afraid to quit because I don't know what I'm into. I don't even know what I'm interested in. And then they're going to work with you. And then you tell them, say, I like aviation. I like fire sciences. I like law enforcement. I like agriculture. I like social media. But I don't know in any of those categories, I don't know what I could do to make money and bring money home to feed my family doing that. So I feel like I'm stuck. Well, that's where you give them the opportunity to then, they're going to say, listen, in fire sciences, these are some career examples. In aviation, you could become a pilot, or there's aviation management, or there's this or this and this, and you can look at this. In law enforcement, you could go these routes or these, and we've seen people do this. And in social media or marketing, there's XYZ with this, and they will literally walk you through these programs. And the reason I'm beating this horse on Voc Rehab Up and 9/11 is because you and I both know so many people that are sitting on the ability to insert change into their life right now if they'll just start the process. And I want to encourage our veterans that you already serve. You have already done the work. This is a resource that is there for you. And that's where we'll put a pin in for GI Bill and Voc Rehab for now. Now, I want to dive into other resources. So let's talk about like the vet service centers and different things like that where you can go. Can you break down into some of these other resources? And let's also talk about nonprofits available to veterans as well.
Yeah. So about a year ago, and this was kind of when I decided, I was actually taking a vet. We were going down to Texas to do a veteran hunt that I was hosting through Wishes. And I got to talking to him, and I was like, he was like, hey man, I've been seeing a therapist. And I was like, dude, that's dope. That's awesome. Good for you. We had a 4-hour drive to the airport, and we talked for the whole 4 hours. And we just talked. This is luckily somebody that I had become close with. We met at my local gym. Found out he was a vet, and I was like, dude, you should come on some of these events with me, man. And he was like, I love that. I've never done one. So we were driving to the airport, and we just talked. And we got to talking. And he's like, man, I think you would benefit from going to the vet center and just maybe talking to somebody. And I was like, oh, rah, I'll be all right, this and that, We did the event, flew home, and it was just kind of one of those, like, you know what? Like, who am I to not, why it would be hypocritical of me to always tell people, hey, man, have you thought about talking to somebody? You're doing all right, trying to help somebody when I'm not trying to help myself. And so the first thing I did was I got on Google and I just typed in Veteran Center. And down the road from where I work, there's literally, it's called the Veteran Services Center, VSC. And they are funded by the VA, but they do not report to the VA. So you can go in there and, if you're worried about, oh, is this going to affect any of my other stuff? They don't report to the VA unless you ask them to upload documents to your files. So I just went in there and I walked right into the center, and there was a guy at the front desk. He was like, "Hey, good morning. How are you?" I said, "Dude," I just need to talk to somebody. And he's like, "Well, let me see who's available." He said, "Take a seat." And I was just sitting there, and this guy walks by and he goes, "You doing all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just kind of here. Just don't really know what, but I just need to talk to somebody." And he's like, "Come on, come back to my office." And we chatted for about 10 minutes, and it turned out that he was the director of the Veteran Center. Just happened to walk by and literally did his job. Hey, are you okay? We got to talking for that 10, 15 minutes, and he said, let's schedule you an actual session. Are you comfortable with that? And I said, yeah. I said, I feel like I need to talk to somebody. I don't know what yet. I don't know what this is, but something's telling me I need to do it. And that was January 20th. I did weekly sessions with him, 1-hour sessions. We would just talk, and he would, he's a great, he would lead it to bring out, and I just kind of felt just this burden, this weight just like coming off of me. And it was one of those like, man, I never knew about this. I'd been out for 10 years. Never even heard of these centers. They do groups, they do one-on-ones, they do family counselings, they do marriage counselings. They're there to they do disability and compensation claims. They have a guy in their center just there to help you with, hey, I need to get this injury added to my VA claim. They'll sit there, hey, I'm looking to do an increase. Hey, I've never done a VA claim. Where do I start? They're going to walk you through. They're there to totally be a resource that you don't. I mean, they're legal, medical, therapy, all because you're a veteran. You don't. There's no. I don't pay anything. Nothing. I can go there and just sit at the center and hang out, have coffee with some of the old timers. It's there for you for anything you need, and it's probably the best investment I've ever made in myself, was starting to see a therapist. I felt less like a hypocrite when I tell people, hey man, have you thought about talking to somebody? There are resources. I can tell you that because I use those resources. And I'm not embarrassed to say that I use those, that I go to therapy. I'm in a group. I'm in a great group of dudes. It's a small 6-guy group, all combat vets. About 90% of them are tier 1 guys in that group. So it's like they get it, And then I found out my therapist, Jeff, the director of that veteran center, is a retired Navy SEAL. So when he says, I get what you're going through, I believe him. I know that he knows what, and he's been there, and he is just, it's a resource that a lot of people don't know about. They're everywhere. I know every state has one, but it's a lot of big cities or, moderately sized cities have something. Even if they don't, they have what's called a VSO, a Veteran Service Officer. Most counties in the country now are hiring these VSOs to be resources for veterans. Their sole job is to be your resource and help you through. Yes, the VA system is getting better, but it is like pulling teeth when dealing with them. It's frustrating. Things aren't going to always go your way. It's slow. That's where these VSOs are there to help guide you through to make it as expedited and easy as possible.
Yeah. And so it's important for our listeners to understand, listen, it's okay not to be okay. Like, it's okay. You don't need to be ashamed that you need help. You don't need to be ashamed that you don't know your options. I know for me, we've talked about this a bunch, that it's embarrassing that I can't tell you what I like. Like, if you're like, hey, J-Matt, what do you want to do? I can't answer that because my mind doesn't roll along those lines. I just have things I feel like I need to do, right? Like provide. And I'm learning, and I've been learning through your example even, if I'm to be honest with you, that it's okay to call someone and say, hey, I'm having a day. I need help. Or I just need somebody to talk to. I know in this last year, I've called you out of the blue before and been like, and you've known me for several years, right? Like, I don't call people, I keep shit to my chest about what I'm going through. But like, I've called you and just like, hey, I just need somebody to talk to. Because you don't always know why. Sometimes you just need to talk to a friend. You just need somebody to chat with. And I think it's super important that people understand that there's these resources out here. That's why I asked you to come on the show and share that. Because that's a huge resource to be able to get a free, by the way, counseling or therapy or what else? What else does? Because I think that like people understand that you can go and get counseling and see a therapist, different things. But what other resources are there? Like, do they build resumes? Is there career stuff? What all do they encompass?
It kind of depends. Like every center is going to have their own abilities,
Yes.
But they're going to have connections to who,
Right.
and they're going to have resources. Even if they don't have it specifically there, they're going to know somebody who can help you in the veteran world, whether that be DAV, the Disabled American Veterans, the VFW. But I mean, they can help with putting you in touch. Say you're having food or home insecurities. You know, hey, I'm barely going to make rent. They can connect you with, hey, let's get you connected with this guy. He can help you with this. They're not going to let you. They're going to be there, and they're going to be there to do whatever you need them to do. Their main thing is therapy and compensation and helping people with their claims and stuff like that, and therapy and just being a resource for somebody to come in and talk. You can walk in off the street and be like, I need to talk to somebody. And they're going to get you. They're going to sit. You might have to wait 30 minutes to an hour for a session to be done, but they're going to see you. Good luck walking into any therapist off the street and being like, hey, I need to talk to somebody. They're going to laugh you back out of the lobby. They're there for those who are having that worst day. They're at that last string. I don't know what to do. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to make it through the night. That's what the vet centers are for. Walk in, have a cup of coffee, talk to someone, and you'll find yourself realizing how good it feels when someone who you're not connected to, because these person don't know you from Adam at the start. So you're able to be, I mean, I was a little guarded at first because I was like, man, I don't know this guy. I open up more to Jeff. And now, so to speak, in the group that I'm in, than I would ever let anyone in my friends or family know about. You know, I mean, you can talk about everything. What are things you're dealing with? I'm having relationship issues, and I don't know why. I'm having issues keeping a job. I don't know why. They're there to hear you out and help guide you in the growth. You know, it's in a healthy, growing way. They're going to listen to your problems. They're not going to prescribe medications. They're not going to do any of that. They're not going to do any of the medical side of that. They're going to be there to listen and just be therapists and help. Yeah. That's what they're there for.
And that's such a great resource. So if you're going through it, you're a veteran, or even if you're not going through it, you just want to know, like, veteran service centers or veteran service offices, whatever they're called, you can look it up. There's a veteran service officer, at least in every state, and a veteran service center of some sort in every state, and even in some big cities. So, yeah, thank you for touching on that. That's an incredible resource for anybody that needs to hear it. And then the fun part, dude, let's talk about some of the nonprofits. Now, I know you work with one in particular, but I know you also know that there's an array. And I kind of want to cover a big, broad scope. We can talk about specifically wishes as well, just so we can get some guys, if they listen to this and they want to apply, we'll hit on that. But talk about other nonprofits that you're aware of, just like the importance of nonprofits to me for our veteran community here, guys, is there's literally groups out there to give you a reprieve, to give you an experience. Like, all you got to do is start applying for this stuff for a lot of you. And you can go and experience things for the first time and even multiple times in different things. Like, go and get yourself around other vets and experience these things that these people have resourced and pooled money and donated items to give you as a thank you. It's okay to be thanked for your service. And I'm not saying that some cheese dick way, but I mean, like, it's okay to go and enjoy the benefit. Me and you and I, excuse me, let's use real English here. James would kill me for talking me and you.
Yeah, how dare you?
Yeah. Captain Nash, just a brilliant man. But James and I, we went on a fishing trip with James that he wasn't a nonprofit, but he donates a veteran fishing trip a year, a guided kokanee fishing trip. And we were able to go and just have an incredible 2-day weekend fishing, right? Like, so that was a resource. But let's get into some of these nonprofits that you're aware of. And I mean, there's thousands, right? But
if you find a niche, there's a nonprofit that for you. You know, I mean, when I started kind of getting involved in the idea of, hey, you know, I really like the outdoors. I love hunting. I love fishing. How can I give back to that? You know, I found in Washington a nonprofit that was fairly large, and I liked what they were doing. They were taking vets out and taking them fishing, taking them hunting. You know, just connecting vets with other vets who, you know, hey, I have a boat. And I would just go on their side. Hey, I've got 4 seats open. Who wants to go salmon fishing? Here's the date. Let me know. I'm going to pick guys tonight. And then, you know, so it was just vets taking other vets. It was a great thing. Once I got a little bit more involved in their organization, I was not as thrilled with how they managed donation money and stuff like that. And so I stepped away from them. And that was when my good buddy Ryan reached out. We'd been, bouncing stuff off ideas on social media. And he was like, hey, man, he goes, why don't you're doing them, I'm doing them. Let's do them together. And so me and Ryan Bodwin, or Ryan Off the Grid, as everyone knows him, we were running events together. We were doing, veteran hunting trips all around the country, flying out there, bringing these vets out, using our resources with outfitters who would donate it, and just, going on some crazy, crazy cool trips. I mean, I went duck hunting off the coast of Maine. I was never gonna do that in my life, And then, as life progressed, Ryan started High Point Adventures, and he's crushing that. He still does crazy, amazing veteran hunting and fishing trips all around the country, and his whole life is service. He's a veteran giving back, and giving veterans the experiences that something that they can just unplug, detach from the day-to-day grind, and just come out and just enjoy life.
Yeah.
When I was getting done with college, I was having trouble. Ryan has the ability to really travel to all these places. I wasn't able to go as much, and as I was transitioning to the working side, Bam reached out, and I joined on with Wishes, and I love it. I mean, he pretty much told me when I came on with Wishes, Bam said, put together hunting trips. Don't worry about the price. Well, we've got that. Make events. Do whatever badass events you want to do. We're there for it. And what I like about Wishes is they're established. They're a large organization, and they, instead of just doing hunting and fishing, they've actually made that one of their smallest programs, because there was the realization that veterans are hungry to learn things, and experience something that they can then take home with them. So now we're doing clinic-based events, whether that be flint knacking, I think it's called, where you tap the rocks and make knives. We sent guys out to learn how to do that for a week, and then they made their own flint knife. Ski trips, whitewater rafting. We're doing more of the non just went, shot a deer, cool, that was fun. We're putting together now, instead of one trophy buck, I can buy 5 doe tags. We take 5 guys and do a hunting 101. They learn shot placement. They learn how to field dress, butcher, and then cook. So there's the learning, something that they can take back home with them and go, okay, now I know how to do this. Doing it in my own home state isn't as intimidating, because I have that base knowledge. I've done it before, and that's been a lot of fun to be able to take my experience in the outdoors and then take these guys who have never done these things, and I forget about how it was for the first time for me to go on these events. You start doing them, I've done it 3 or 4 times, and then I see the guys and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it felt like. That seeing them light up when a huge wad of freaking sandhill cranes is flying right over you, even if we're not shooting yet, watching them just, stuff like that. It's like, all right, yes, and
Yeah.
Wishes they have mental, if you're having issues, they have a guy who will connect you with mental health, and stuff. There's a program for police and first responders. There's kind of a little bit of everything. So there's all these amazing nonprofits that are there to be a resource because you earned it. You don't have to, there's no ego there. It's just, here, let us be a resource. Let us give back. There's amazing companies that want to be involved with just their way of giving back. I mean, I'm wearing right now, Howitzer Clothing is Wish's biggest supporter. They give a percentage of all their sales as their donation. They just want to be involved, and their way of giving back was getting on board with a nonprofit and funding those adventures. They send boxes of stuff to these events. Here, have some hoodies. They just want, it's just their, these companies' way of giving back. They can't necessarily thank every single person, but they can put resources in the hands of the people who will do the events. And there's nonprofit. There's stuff for everything. Team Semper Fi. They do a lot. I know a buddy of mine, Team Semper Fi, sent him to Montana to go to Guide and Outfitters school. They paid for it because that's what he wanted to do, and the GI Bill wouldn't cover it at the time. So Team Semper Fi came to bat. Boom, here you go. The resources are there. You just have to look, and you have to check your ego at the door, and don't come in with this puffed up chest like I'm, Billy Badass. Just go
Too
in there.
Good to be helped.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. That's honestly probably my biggest pet peeve is people that say, hey, I've got this event. I want you to I want to take you on this event. Guys that give, and they say, no, give it to somebody that deserves it more than me. Well, no, I'm giving it to you because you deserve to be served as well. I can't stand somebody else deserves it more than me.
Yeah, that was me for a lot of years.
And a lot of people are. And it's one of those, when it comes to, I ask guys, I'm like, hey, have you done your VA claim? Well, no, there's other guys that need that more than me. Look, the VA is not going to run out of money. You're not taking from someone else because you're getting something. There's plenty to go around. And that's the same with resources too. There are plenty. You're not taking away from my ability because you're trying to get something. We both can get the same amount of everything. You just have to be willing to ask and to say, hey, look, I need help, or hey, I need evaluated for this, or hey, I need to be seen for this. If you're not willing to ask, you're wasting those resources that are available to you.
100%. That's awesome. And the biggest thing is that there's whatever your niche is, whatever it is that you want to experience, there's so many different of these available under different kind of categories as well, from Purple Heart rated to combat action ribbon related to disability rating related to even just service.
Being a veteran. Yeah, absolutely.
Even just being a veteran. There's a multitude of ones. I could say that if you're one of those people that has experienced a little bit more in the military or been through a little bit more or served during a time of war, there's exponentially more for you that is a little bit more unique or harder to get into, you would think, but there's a ton of resources there. So I'm just going to encourage our veterans that are listening to this to please, or our veteran spouses that may listen to this, please encourage your vet to go. And let's talk about this for half a second here, and then we're going to move on to questions, right? But let's talk about this for half a second, that your willingness to go and participate in these might be the catalyst for someone else to get unscared and do it and change their life. Because there's people in your circle that may need it more than you, but will never ask for it because they don't ever see you do it. And sometimes you got to go first. So this is where that check your attitude at the door thing comes, because for me, one thing is, like you said, give it to somebody that's been through more, that was hurt, or no way. But then it's by me going on or starting to go on some of these trips, one, I'm offering myself now to other veterans to get to know me and my network and maybe making friends and so on and so forth. But two, maybe there's other veterans that watch me and see what I'm doing, that see me go and experience and go, well, if he can try out for that, that would look kind of cool. Maybe I'll go try. And you never know when that trip might be the trip that changes somebody near you or that follows you, even changes everything for them.
Absolutely.
Right?
And the biggest thing, the biggest compliment you can get, when hosting one of these events, is when you hear from a guy. And I make it a point at every event that I host, just walking around, when asking them, how are you doing? You having a good time? I'm not going to prod them, hey, are you having it? But it's just casual, we'll be at the lodge after a day of hunting. Guys are just hanging out, relaxing, shooting pool. And it's hey man, you having a good time? Is there anything you need? And the biggest compliment you can get is, man, I needed this so much. Man,
Yeah.
I needed this weekend. I didn't, or you hear, I had no idea. We get guys who they didn't even sign themselves up. Their wives signed them up. Hey, and they write their justification. Like, hey, this is what my husband does. He could use a weekend like this. And those are the ones that when we're evaluating for these trips, we're like, hey, we read through everything and we're like, he needs this. Let's get him out there.
Yeah.
And we do still get guys who they can't step onto the plane. They're not there yet. And it's unfortunate because we paid for your flight and you didn't show up. But everyone that shows up, you can see it, and the next thing you'll hear is, "Hey, when's the next event you guys are hosting? When's the next time I could apply?" And I tell people, I'm like, "Look, you can apply for every event that Wishes does. It doesn't mean you're going to be selected for every event because we like to serve new people. We want to get more engagement. There will be times where I know guys that ended up doing like 3 or 4 events in one year because he was available. Last minutes. Hey, we had a guy fall out. Well, hey, this guy's 2 hours away. We could just invite him, and he drives in. We have guys locality wise. Sometimes we're like, hey, we've got this event in Texas, but we don't want to fly people in. Flights are crazy. Let's look at our pool of veterans in Texas. Hey, who's within a 5-hour drive? Anybody interested in doing this? There's guys that they only want to do this one thing, and so they'll put in for just that every year. And eventually they come around, and it's like I see guys about every 3rd year. I'm like, hey, welcome back, kind of thing. But I still hear from them in those 2 or 3 years in between. They always know. Everybody knows. If you hit me up, if you message me, I'm not going to blow you off. I'm not going to be like, cool, man, hey, I brought you on this event. All right, well, goodbye. No, you can hit me up for the next 10 years. Be like, hey, man, is there anything going on with Wish? And I'll send you links. Hey, here's one. Here's something good. I have no problem. You're not a one and done. You are, once you're in like our Wishes system, you're in the system. So, you're going to get emails about events. You're going to be kept in the loop on stuff we have coming up. And there's times where we're doing couples. It's not just the veteran now. It's the veteran and his spouse or her spouse. Cooking classes, like wine and painting nights. We're not just doing stuff to get you out there. They're doing local stuff in Boise. They're doing bring your family to the sledding hill, and we're doing a barbecue and sledding. They're doing amazing stuff. They did like a Toys for Tots drive at Red Robin. Red Robin wanted to get involved. Hey, we want to donate a night where you bring in families, and they had Santa. I mean, those are the resources that it's nothing. It didn't take from anybody to just go and enjoy and spend some time with your family, hang out with some other vets. Maybe network, meet some new people that you might not have ever known were around. That turns out you guys might be best friends.
Yeah, for sure.
Go to a fishing trip in Wallowa, Oregon, with a guy you've talked with online. Turns out 5 years later, you guys are like best friends.
Yeah, you never know. The possibilities are out there, and they're endless. Well, Chris, we've been recording for an hour and 35 minutes. We dragged people through the mud at this point. So let's get into the questions and wrap this show up. What do you think?
Okay, let's do it.
So, first and foremost, what is a blue-collar barbarian to you?
Well, I guess I have to go back. I mean, anybody in the blue-collar side, in my opinion, is somebody who's obviously working that job, providing for their life. Now, when I think about the barbarian side of it, it's that person who is doing everything they can to better themselves in the position that they're at. So using that work ethic, that those skills that you're picking up in that job site and trying to move forward with it. Always looking to better yourself, whether that be financially, whether that be emotionally, relationship-wise, anything you can be doing to make yourself one step better. And it's not going to be a fast process, but
No.
as long as there is progress, then you're doing it, in my opinion. So, I mean, somebody that is striving to better themselves every single day.
Sure. Wonderful. I love it. All right. Leading right into what is something veterans should know about asking for help?
It is there. That the hardest part of it is asking. It's the hardest thing. The hardest thing to do is picking up that phone and saying, I need help. Walking through the doors at a vet center. I need to talk to somebody. That's going to be the hardest thing you do. It's going to be the biggest gut check. My stomach was in knots when I did it. And it's the best decision you'll ever make.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So getting started is the hardest thing. Like taking the initial steps.
That's it.
But the help is there if you need it.
The help will always be there.
Yeah. No, very well. Your thoughts on trades versus degrees, and we don't need to get into the weeds on it, but what do you mean?
Well, and with my experience on both sides of it, there are amazing benefits to being in the trade side, being that union side. Mostly the bargaining board, the union, the paychecks. Do I miss it? Not one bit. I don't miss being in the trenches. I don't miss being cold. I don't miss wondering when I'm going to get laid off because we're slowing down. I don't miss any of it. But you learn certain things that carry over to the corporate, the salary side. You learn the work ethic. You have the ability to connect with those workers who are doing it. You can relate. You can empathize. You can understand that, hey, when they tell you, we're not going to get this done today, it's not going to happen. You can look at it critically and go, yeah, they're right. They're going to need another week. Okay, let's figure out how we can make it to where they're not working unsafe. So I think it's a best of both worlds. Everybody in the corporate side should have started out in the blue collar side, in the trades. That's why I love those superintendents that you knew, shit, man, that guy did his apprenticeship here. Like, he moved all the way up the rank. Now he's a superintendent because he gets it.
No, yeah, for sure. I concur with everything you said there. It's I think you start learning with your hands, but as you evolve, this is the barbarian part, right? Like, it's important to realize that there's a time to lead, not just to continue to be a hammer, but to become the guy that orders hammers and hands them out, right? There's definitely a contrast there. Very, very well said. How can someone get involved and give back to veterans? For our listeners that maybe listen to this and want to, hey, I want to help. What can they do?
So, I mean, I guess it's the same thing as receiving help. The first thing you can do is ask. With wishes in particular, you can go on our website and literally there's a way that says get involved. Yeah. And you can fill that out. With Ryan's nonprofit, you can just reach out. You can message Ryan. That guy will answer every social media message he ever gets. And he answers them personally. And I mean, if you want to get involved with Ryan and with High Point Adventures, if you've got something, reach out. Same thing. You can always message me. If hey, we've got this thing we want to do. And maybe it's not my portion of wishes, but I can put you in touch with the person that would oversee that for wishes, and we could totally get things done. There's, just, asking is the easiest way.
Yeah, for sure. And then a little bit more different note here. What's your biggest fear?
Spiders.
Really?
Yeah, I hate it. And snakes. I hate snakes too.
You don't like snakes?
I don't. I hate snakes. I don't at all. No, but I mean that's my easiest. That is my biggest fear. But being inadequate, that is my biggest fear. Is not just feeling it, but being it. I'm very critical of myself. A lot has changed, in the past year. And then I look back and I'm like, wow, look at you, slob. And
I know.
And I don't ever want to go back to that feeling. And that was during like the darkest time of my life prior to stepping foot through a vet center. I was inadequate in my own life. I was no good for me. I was no good for anybody. And making strives, again, like I said, that better every single day, just trying to better my life in this past 12 months. It all started with walking through the door, asking for help, and exponentially, I still have those days where I'm like, man, I'm no good. I'm, you're going to beat yourself up every day, but it's like, then you look back, just look back. Where was I at last year? Where was I at 6 months ago? And you'd be like, oh man, because even, with weight loss, me and you have both been on this crazy, we're taking our lives back. We've both lost a ton of weight. And it's one of those, like, you can look at yourself in the mirror every day and you're like, get really critical of yourself. And then, that's what my case was. And then I went back and was like, let me go back 1 year and then compare the differences. And you're like, and you have to give yourself credit for that. And
I almost can't. Like, I look at our photos, 2020. When did we kill that? Was it 21 or 20 we killed that fallow?
That had to have been 21, 2 years ago.
21, yeah. So 3 years ago.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I can't look at that picture. It's hard. Well, I can, but it's hard. It's hard to look at that picture and be like, I let myself get to that.
Yeah.
So being inadequate for your biggest fear, that hits home with me. That resonates. Yeah, Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's something everybody, it's subjective. What is inadequate to you? That's what you got to think about, and that's, you'll rack your brain some night going, what can I do to not be?
I think settling is my biggest fear. Is the thought that I'd ever settle to be a mediocre character again is my biggest fear, is that I'd ever go back to that, like being mediocre. Yeah. I want to be excellent so that I can inspire and impact more people. Like, that's everything to me. Hence this podcast. You know me personally, dude. Everything I am doing is trying to help people, and to inspire people, and just know, for our veterans and other people out there, there's people out there that genuinely give a shit about you that you don't know, that literally spend their time honing that sword to try to be somebody that can encourage and inspire more of you. They don't even know you, but that's what they want, is to see you succeed. There's people out there. Chris is one of those guys for you. So anybody listening to this, you can reach out to him. If you feel inadequate or any of that, please reach out. And then my final question, with all the growth that you've experienced over the last year, and just the last, let's say 5 years even, I don't think I could have asked you this before. I don't think I could have asked you this 14 months ago and got a serious answer. But I'm curious now, what is your biggest goal now?
Honestly, and it's going to be strange because it has nothing to do with financial. It has nothing to do with what I can get. And the easiest thing is, honestly, I just want to live a good life. That's the biggest goal. Is I don't want to have to stress a paycheck. I don't want to have to stress where I'm going to live. I just want to, what I have, I want to grow on that and enjoy the ride that I'm, it might change next week. I might decide, well, you know what? To hell with it. I want this. And that'll be cool. But right now, I'm just enjoying the ride. There's been a lot of positives in my life in the past year, and I'm riding that high and just, trying to keep with that upward trajectory and just enjoying the ride that I'm on right now.
No, that's beautiful. And it's easy to get caught up in the wish and the wash. And I have some pretty large goals, you know me, but I do find appreciation in the simple things, and I can definitely find comfort in the idea of just, at the end of the day, I want people to know that I gave it what I had, and I did my best. I did everything I could to be good and good to others and to give. So I got a deep respect for that. Well, bud, we've been going for an hour and 45 minutes. So it's that point in the Blue Collar Barbarian podcast, the Barbarians. This is where we close the show, and I ask for closing remarks. And I typically like to ask our audience or our guests to leave something for our audience that sharpens that mental tip of the spear, right? So I'm looking for a book suggestion or a quote or something that spoke to you personally in your journey.
I'm going to have to look it up, the exact quote, so I don't botch it. So give me 1 second. But it's a Kissinger quote.
And when we're talking about these quotes, while you're looking here in these books for our audience, it's really important that you learn to understand that you can become more dynamic by literally reading some of these books or looking at quotes. There's things, source your inspiration, things like that. Just it's really important that you keep that mental tip of your spear sharp. You always keep progressing and you always keep growing along those fronts, right? And so when I say something that spoke to you or that's worked with you, I guess what I'm asking is like, and you're going to give us this Kissinger quote in just a second, but like that, when we share these things with you, it's so that you guys can literally understand from somebody else's perspective what has spoke to their life and helped them, and that you can see that there's so much more out there if you just dive in a little bit. You got that quote for me?
Yeah. So the quote was, all of the gods, all the heavens, all the hells are within you. So everything, and when I think about that, it's those battles, you could be, they're on the inside. Everything is in you. So what you're going to manifest in your life starts within here. What are you going to strive for? What are you going to allow to mess with you? That battle's inside you. Only you can win or lose a battle. Now, like I said, the hardest thing you're going to have to do is when you're losing a battle, and you might not be losing, you just might not be winning, that you need to reinforce yourself. And that's where that taking the first step, reach out to somebody, ask for help. If you're too proud to ask for help, you're never going to win.
No. Beautifully said. Perfect note to end on. If you're too proud to ask for help, you're never going to win. It's okay to need help. There's resources, as we just covered. Go back, listen to this again. There's tons of resources. Chris Mann, my man, a different side of you we got to share with people today. Thank you for coming on the Blue Collar Barbarians podcast with me. You are a barbarian. You're one of my best friends. I personally appreciate you, and I know that everybody that listens to this is going to take something from this. So thank you so much for your time today, dude.
All right, man.
Yeah. To our barbarians, thanks for listening. Sorry to drag you through the mud for an hour and 50 minutes with my man here, heavy hitter. But go back, listen to this. If you know a veteran that could use help, or you know somebody that's struggling that's too proud to ask for help, reach out to me. Reach out to Chris. Let us, if we can be a resource to any of you that need help, you need to maybe know where to start looking for or who to start talking to for nonprofits, for VA counselors, for upping your disability claim or challenging things, appealing things, getting things added. Chris is an outstanding resource for that, and he gets back to everybody. So please reach out to him, and I can connect you with people as well, and we are happy to. And please check out Wishes for Warriors. That's an incredible nonprofit, as well as Ryan's. What was Ryan's again?
High Point Adventures.
High Point Adventures. Make sure to check that out as well. Chris, where can people follow along?
Instagram at High Range Hunting. There's not a lot of hunting stuff there left anymore. It's you're gonna see a lot of farm pictures, a lot of baby cows. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you're looking for the hunting stuff, it's long gone now. So, but I mean, that's what it is. It's where I'm most active. I mean, you can always find me on Facebook. I don't use it much, but it's there if you need it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, everybody. So High Range Hunting on Instagram. If you want to get in touch with Chris, that's where the best place to get a hold of him. But other than that, we'll see you on the next one.